Hello everyone, my name is Rajni Jain. I am TGT English from Jawahar Navodaya Vidyalaya, Sirohi, Rajasthan. Today we shall study a beautiful symbolic poem named Fire and Ice. It is written by Robert Frost. This poem is taken from your first flight book. So let's just begin. Before proceeding further, I want to make my friends familiar with some major themes or sub themes used in this poem. There are more than one theme. The major idea or theme convey that human emotions, whether negative or positive, can become the cause of disaster if exceed to limits. Fire of desires leads towards anger, jealousy, conflict, lust, and intolerance in case of unfulfillment. Ice of hatred paralyzes a human mind and transforms one into an insensitive, indifferent, and rigid being. We have sub-themes also used in this poem. We should never let our emotions rule us. We should try to keep ourselves calm and controlled in adverse situations to avoid destruction. So, here I have discussed the major themes or the sub themes used in this poem. Friends, before we move ahead, it is important for you to know about the inspiration to this poem. I mean, from where Robert Frost got the inspiration to compose this poem. Fire and Ice is a short rhyming poem. Frost wrote it in 1920. It was probably inspired by Dante's poem Inferno. In this poem, Dante explains that the people who indulge themselves in wrong deeds or the sinners on the earth have to live in a hell like place where, with fire all around. And later, their bodies are submerged up to their necks in a lake of ice. Frost got inspired after reading this poem and decided to compose Fire and Ice. Friends, before reciting and explaining the poem, let's focus on the title of this poem. The title of this poem is Fire and Ice. Both the things are opposite in nature. Fire has heating tendency, whereas ice is cool and solid in nature. As I told you earlier also that it is a symbolic poem, so you must keep in mind that here the fire is not exactly the fire that emit heat or the fire of volcanoes that causes natural disaster. Similarly, ice is not exactly the ice found in hilly regions or the ice of glaciers. Both the things, fire and ice, symbolize something else in this poem. Here, fire symbolizes human emotions of desires, wants, or wishes, whereas ice symbolizes a negative emotion, that is, hatred, means a feeling of hate. I shall discuss this poem in detail. We shall focus on vocabulary, literary devices, and central idea used in this poem. Here goes the poem. Fire and Ice. Some say the world will end in fire, some say in ice. From what I have tasted of desire, I hold with those who favor fire. But if it had to perish twice, I think I know enough of hate to say that for destruction, ice is also great and would suffice. Here, the first two lines, some say the world will end in fire, some say in ice. In these two lines, the poet says that there are two groups of people having different opinions about how the world will end. Some people are in the opinion that one day the world will come to an end, because of fire, whereas the people of other group believe that the world will end in ice. Here, the poet has told what the people say about the destruction of this world. But in next two lines, he will tell about his own belief about the end of this world. The next two lines, from what I have tasted of desire, I hold with those who favor fire. Well, so far the poet was talking about the opinions of two groups of people, but now he is sharing his own experience about desire. Tasted here means experienced. He has decided to choose those people who say that the world would end in fire. It is so because the poet feels that human desires are no less than fire. He wants to say that our desires are very strong and become the cause of our destruction. If our desires are not fulfilled, they keep on burning in our heart like fire. So, and lead us towards anger, jealousy, and conflict. In this way, this fire of never ending desire never puts out. In this condition, people try to harm themselves or the society. That's why the poet decides to favor the people who support fire. Then, in next two lines, he says, "But if it had to perish twice, I think I know enough of hate." Here, the poet feels and believes if the world has to perish two times, means if this world gets another chance to be destroyed, then he says there is sufficient ice around the world among the people. Ice here means hatred or the feeling of hate. What he means to say that the feeling of hatred is equally powerful and can destroy the world. In next lines he say that for destruction ice is also great and would suffice. Here the poet feels that this feeling of hatred makes a person insensitive toward the people who are around him. Thus, this ice of hatred is also sufficient or enough to end the world. Here, it can be said that both these emotions, desire and ice, should be kept under control. We should not let these emotions rule us, otherwise, they would surely one day become the cause of our destruction. I have given you a detailed explanation to this poem. Well, now it's time to understand how the rhyme scheme is used in this poem. As you know, there are 9 lines in this poem. We will divide the lines into sets of 3. The rhyme scheme is ABA, ABC, and BCB. Let's pay attention the words which are rhyming together. Here you can see fire, desire, and fire. So here these 3 words are rhyming and we shall label them as a. Then ice, twice, ice. Ice here is being repeated, and lastly we see here suffice. So here all these 4 words are rhyming with one another. We shall call them B. Then we see here hate and great. These are 2 different words used, hate and great, and we can label them as C. So here in this way it makes a rhyme scheme here, that is ABA, ABC, BCB. Well, now it's time to see literary devices used in this poem. First of all, we can see the use of a literary device called anaphora. Anaphora is basically the repetition of the words at the start of two or more consecutive lines. So here, in the beginning of line 1 and 2, the words like some say are given. This is called anaphora. Once again, I tell you here that anaphora is basically the repetition of the words at the start of two or more consecutive lines. Another device used in this poem is alliteration. Alliteration is the occurrence of the same consonant letter or sound at the beginning of adjacent or closely connected words. So here these words are some say, world will, and favor fire. So here we can see the use of alliteration. In some say, letter S and sound serve. Similarly, in world will, letter W and sound W. Here in favor fire, letter F and sound F. All these are consonant sounds and these words are closely connected, and this is what we call alliteration. Next we can find the use of one more device, that is assonance. In assonance we can see the prominence of vowel sound. So here we have some examples, just as we can see will and in fire. Here another example is I hold with those who favor fire. Then one more example is there of assonance, and this is I think I. So here in all these lines you can notice the prominence of a vowel sound. Here in this line vowel I is prominent, whereas here in fourth line you can see the prominence of vowel O. Similarly, line 6th tell you about the use of vowel I. Here I think I. So in this way we can understand it very well. Whenever there is prominence of vowel sounds, this is called assonance. Then we have another device, that is consonance. Consonance is the repetition of consonant sound in the beginning, middle and end. For example, the sound in with those. Here you can see two words have been given. At the final position of with, the sound is being used. In the similar way, at the initial position of those, the sound is being used, and this is what we call consonant sound, and it becomes the literary device consonance. Similarly, we can see here one more poetic device, which is called enjambment. Enjambment is basically a device which is used when the same sentence continues to the next line without the use of any punctuation mark. So each line runs into the next. For example, here you can see the last three lines. I have marked these lines for you. In last three lines, we do not see the use of any punctuation marks. This line, to say that for destruction eyes, it runs into next without use of any comma or punctuation mark. And here in last line we see that it ends with a full stop only. So here when these sorts of lines are given without use of any punctuation mark, this is what we call enjambment. And lastly, we can see here a literary device that runs through the poem, that is a symbolism. So I must say here that this is a beautiful symbolic poem where fire stands for desire and ice represents hatred. I have explained here all the literary devices used in this poem. Well, here for your better understanding and convenience, I have given all the literary devices in written form. So after pausing this slide for some time, you can go through it very easily and note it down in your notebook as well. Finally, we shall get the central idea by summing up the poem. Here we shall get to know the central idea of this poem. Robert Frost's poem Fire and Ice conveys a simple but important theme about human behavior. Literally, the poet says that there are two destructive forces sufficient enough to destroy the world. These two forces are fire and ice. But here in this poem, fire stands for human desires, greed, lust, intolerance, and conflict, highlighting human vices, which can become the cause of their disaster. Similarly, ice stands for hatred, rigidity, insensitivity, coldness, and indifference. These vices are strong enough to destroy the fabric of society. It is this feeling of desire that makes someone greedy and selfish, whereas hatred causes people to be rigid, unmoving, and cold. Both of them are equally powerful. By associating these forces with human vices, the poet wants to convey that there is a dire need to bring a change in human behavior to lead a peaceful and healthy life. It has aptly been said that excess of anything is bad. Therefore, we should never let our emotions rule us. Thank you all very much. If you have really liked my video, please don't forget to hit like and subscribe button.